What's up and welcome back to Bardown Talking Hockey episode number 190, presented by the Barroom Network. It is the home of everything relating to the greatest sport in the world, the NHL. My name is Vinny Parisi, and I still somehow believe the New Jersey Devils are going to win the Stanley Cup. And this right here, this is Frankie Mueller, and he is the king of all beans. Frank. Capitals goal scored by number 8, Alex Ovechkin. His third of the game and 882nd in the NHL. Welcome to Bardown. Let's just send it right on over to period number 1. I didn't ask you how you're doing because I don't care. Frank? Alexander, yeah. I'm just kidding. How you doing?
Fair. I think that's the first time we've gone to period 1 without me saying a word. Just shove it right down my throat.
You had to know. I mean, you know it's coming. You know, like I'm not gonna like. Oh, Frank, it's okay. It's okay. You've been hard on this opinion, this bad opinion for 2 years, and yeah. I'm just gonna let it go quietly into the sunset. You thought
Forget
that
about it, right?
Yeah, just totally like never mention it again, probably.
That's fair. You should.
I could be Washington's public address announcer, though.
Ugh.
I announced that well. I would have said who assisted it, but I don't have that in front of me. I just know. Actually, I do have it in front of me. It was Ovechkin, unassisted, into the empty net for career goal number 882. Frank, this man is on fire.
He is. 30-goal season again.
Again.
He's done it in every year except one, which was the COVID year. So, and he was on pace to get over 30 that year. I think he finished like 24 or 25 goals.
Yeah.
And he had like
he did do it in the short season, 2013. Crazy.
And he had almost 40 games left. So,
yeah.
It's incredible, honestly, for a guy like him to like just anybody in general to keep up that pace at his age, going through that injury we talked about. You know, you don't know how people are going to react, especially when you're not used to having prolonged injuries that take you out of the game for a significant amount of time. It is remarkable. It really is. So, I mean, he started off right where he left off.
You know, Ovechkin's doing well when he's exceeding my expectations.
I think he's exceeding everybody's expectations
well,
at this point.
I thought he'd break it this year. I thought there was a chance he'd break it this year at the start of the year. And then he scored 17 goals in his first 20 games of the season, and I thought it was a lock, right? Then he broke his leg. I'm like, Ovechkin's never had an injury like that. Like, he's missed a game here or there. I think he's had a couple, like, missed games because he didn't want to play in the All-Star game, like those types of situations.
Suspended, too, because of it.
Yeah, really doesn't miss games due to injury too often, which is crazy based on his old school style of play. His current style of play, that's funny. His current style of play, he gets hurt. He doesn't run around creating a muck anymore, hitting everything in sight like he once did. And this is when he got, had a season with an injury. But I mean, it's crazy to me that he has done this at his age at this pace. Now, the reason I always felt he would get this close to the record, he hasn't broken it yet. Anything realistically, I mean, we're getting there. But my theory always just was like Jágr. Jágr, he slowed down, like with his strides and his, ability to forecheck like quickly and, especially as the league gets faster and faster. But that shot that wasn't in the hat trick game, number 30, 882. It was one of the most brilliant, like taking the puck and zipping it past the goalie I've ever seen. And he's 39 doing it. He's not going to win the Rocket Richard because Leon Draisaitl's like so far ahead of everyone basically at this point. But it's been remarkable to watch this year, and everyone's kind of like buying into like being excited about this record too, except for you. It's one of the greats of the generation. I was watching last night when Pittsburgh played Philly, and I watched the overtime, and Evgeny Malkin scored using a great move. And Malkin doesn't have the foot speed that he once did, but I literally said it right when he scored. I'm like, that's the one part of most people's game that just doesn't go away. If you have that shot, you'll be able to score some goals if you're put in good situations. Malkin found himself in a good situation. And then it got me thinking, like, Ovechkin, Malkin, Crosby, Kane, Stamkos, that whole generation that came before the current one. They're slowing down, but they're still great. And it's like, I'm so excited to, like, watch this great era come to a conclusion. It'll go down as my favorite era. I'll always love the new guys and be excited. Celebrini, Bedard, Jack Hughes, but like they're all 10 years younger than me. These guys are all 10 years older than me almost. And they were like my heroes when I was in high school and younger. Like, it's just so cool to see what Ovechkin's doing. It really, really is.
If he does it, it'll put a smile on my face. It'll be a fun.
I know it will.
It'll be a fun moment to watch. I'll be watching it. Like you said, they'll stop the game, have a little ceremony, do what they got to do, probably have a presentation of some sort. Maybe they'll give them, like, I don't know. I know they give out like silver sticks for 1,000 games played or whatever points, and they give out different things. They'll probably have something that's just for him. It'll probably be a stick of some sort. Maybe like, I don't know if they've ever given out a golden stick. I can't think. Maybe it'll be a golden stick or some sort of special award they'll give to Ovechkin for it. And it's like, I grew up with him too, watching Crosby, Kane, Ovechkin, all these greats, even Yager. I saw a good portion of Yager, all these great players. It is like a closing of the book, because this is something we'll never we might see it again. Like, Matthews, he's on pace. He's doing great. If he could stay healthy and non-injured, look at the goals he's putting up every season. So, could we see it again? Yeah. But so many generations have gone by watching Gretzky and all his goals and guys not being able to come close to him and break the record. This could be a once in a lifetime thing that we witness. So it's going to be cool regardless.
Yeah, I would think like guys like Austin Matthews and Pasternak who like look like they could be in the high 700s if they stay healthy, which if you get there, you can wonder how long they play, how long do they stretch it out. Does a 70-goal season get him in that 800 range? Like, it's possible. I don't think Ovi's not retiring at 895. Like, I legitimately think 1,000 goals is possible, because why should I, under any circumstances, believe he's going to slow down? He's got 2 years left on his deal. Washington is sick. They are so sick. And if you're him, like, why do you quit? Why are you done right after the record? You can get another cup. Washington is a cup contender. And I don't know if, like, I would pick them necessarily, but, like, who in the East? Toronto, Florida? Like, is Florida going to repeat? I guess that's possible. Nobody ever has faith in Toronto. Carolina's been mostly dog crap since Thanksgiving. The Devils have been mostly dog crap since Christmas. Like, it's not like the Eastern Conference is this powerhouse that Washington can't break through. Every time Washington plays, I get a little giddy. He played against a goalie last night that he has never scored on, and that's almost always a sure Ovechkin goal, and he didn't score one. Joel Hofer is one of the goalies in the NHL of the St. Louis Blues who has not given up a goal to Ovechkin, and he didn't get one last night. So I found that pretty funny. Frank, when do you think the record is going to be broken?
So here's what I'm at, because, the hockey gods, they just hate me. There's two options here. It'll either be, obviously, if it happens, April 4th, final game against the Hawks this year. That's how it is. That's the ultimate shove it up my ass type of moment, right? And like, the Capitals are at home. It makes sense. The writing's on the wall. The crowd's buzzing. The other thing, which is also shove it up my ass type of moment, is that it'll happen next year. The biggest marketing point the NHL could have going into next season. Something they could heavily market, heavily take advantage of, soak as much money as they can out of it. And he does it next season at some point. In my eyes, because I just know how the hockey gods hate me, it's one of those two that are going to happen. So I'm leaning, honestly, towards next year because I'm somebody who picture headlines and like I could see there being a huge headline marketing it for next season. And I don't see the headline happening this year. There's no like big games left. Like if he was in a stadium series later on in like April, I'd be like, that could happen against the Penguins in a stadium series later in the season. That could happen. But I'm a big headline guy. I see a headline going into next season and the NHL using the 26-7 season or 25-6 season to headline the goal breaking chase.
I get it. I could see. So my worry, and this happens a lot with records, like prestigious all-time records. I think in baseball, hockey, guys get like one or two away, and then they struggle for a little bit because then it's like it's all that's on their mind. They're not truly playing their game, and when you're not truly playing your game, that's when stuff goes to shit. Quite frankly. It also wouldn't shock me if Ovechkin just is 3 away and gets a hat trick in one game to, complete it. Like that also I could see happening too. I don't think he's going to break it on an empty netter. I think somebody asked Carberry if
you'd have to fire the coach.
Well, somebody asked Carberry. I think it might have been Elliot. So I listen to 32 Thoughts every episode religiously now. I've added a third podcast that I don't miss. I have a bunch of podcasts that I listen to most episodes. I listen to almost every minute of Cap and J Hood, but it's a 3-hour daily radio program. I can't get to every minute of that show every week. I would probably say I get to 90% of it. But like I listen to every episode of no matter what, every minute of Spittin' Chicklets in Section 10. I added 32 Thoughts to that because the information that Elliot Friedman and Kyle Bukauskas bring to the table, and I got to meet both of them at the Winter Classic. It was awesome. I don't miss a minute of that show, and they give good information. And Elliot talked about how Carberry just was asked about it, and he said that he hasn't talked with Ovechkin about that yet, but Carberry's opinion, knowing Ovi, is that Ovi is not going to want that to be the case, and he won't even likely want to be out there in an empty net situation when that time comes. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. That'll take opportunities to score away if he's 1 goal away and the empty net situation comes up. It's like, oh, well, we know it's going to wait till tomorrow or the next day. But yeah, so he's on pace to do it against the Blackhawks on the 4th. If he stays with his current pace, right? And I'm not being a troll. That is a fact.
I know.
If you look at his current pace from scoring goals this season and what that pace, what game would it drop on that he broke the record? It is April 4th against the Chicago Blackhawks in Washington. I think it'd be sick from a pure NHL point of view. So we had this great regular season, right? I don't know about quite as good as last year. Last year was just insane from beginning to end. But this year's been great too. So many crazy races going on in the Eastern Conference. The Western bubble's getting down to 2 or 3 teams now. Utah in their first season is like in the mix all of a sudden. The Winter Classic at Wrigley Field, it wasn't a great game, but the ambiance and the visuals were outstanding. The Four Nations face-off was a massive home run. The league has to be so thrilled with how that went. And so after this great regular season, the final game of the year for Washington, Ovi has 894. He has tied the record over the last week, and he needs 1 more to be the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer. And they play their biggest rival, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Do they really on
their final game of the season? And if he broke the record against Pittsburgh on the last day of the season, the NHL propels themselves right into the playoffs so nicely. Oh, Washington's going to be feeling good. They're going to be a hard out. I don't know if they're going to win the cup, but I don't see them. I don't see the President's Trophy curse taking them out in the first round. I'll put it that way. I do believe in the President's Trophy curse for a full season. But I also, it's mostly BS because the 1 seed has won more Stanley Cups than any other seed. People, forget that. But it's been in recent memory since the lockout, the big lockout in 2005, the President's Trophy's been cursed. And maybe it's cursed. Maybe Washington, I don't know. But watching Ovi this season has been a treat. They go on the laptop at minimum when the Devils are on at the same time or whatever. We're getting down to the wire. We're 10 away from tying it. Or no, is it 12? 12 away from tying it? Yeah, 12 away from tying it. No, 11 more from tying it, 12 more from breaking it. So it's
Here's
going
the
to
other
be
thing too.
crazy couple weeks.
If he's a few goals away by the end of the year, and you're on your final like game of the season, they might not play him though, right? Unless
No, I don't see that.
you think they'll play him?
Yeah.
I think that I don't know, man. I wouldn't like.
Is it
To me,
smart for
it's not
playoff
because
purposes?
they're
No.
so far ahead in the standings. Like, why are we like? What if he just gets shelled? Like, your goal here is to win the cup one more time with him, right? Like, this could be the year. Is it worth breaking the record? Like, if he comes back next year and he's as great as he's been, he's going to break it anyway. So why force it this year?
I get what you're saying. That's just not going to happen. I don't like. They're already switching games. Did you notice that at all? They're switching times. Washington's last 2 weeks of the season just got an extreme makeover home edition over the last week.
But if he's like 5 out, like, why are we going to play him?
Well, because he
Like,
could get 3 in an instant,
I
like
know,
he did
but like,
against Edmonton.
what if he was 5 out in the final game?
Well, then maybe.
Would you play him?
I don't know. You also you don't know exactly where they're going to be standings wise by then. They're on the road.
That
Yeah,
stuff
see,
always worries me.
Capitals. Oh, their second, their last home game is against Pittsburgh. Their last real game, or their last game in general, is against the Islanders on April 15th. It's a Tuesday, and that's on ESPN. Wouldn't shock me if there's some kind of agreement, like handshake agreement, like, oh yeah, Ovechkin's going to be playing. April 13th, they play Columbus. Am I tweaking?
That just stuff worries me, you know?
Oh, it is their last game of the season in Pittsburgh on April 17th. It's the last game outright. I looked at the schedule wrong. I looked at it right, and then I looked at it wrong. Now I'm looking at it right again. Yeah, in Pittsburgh on ESPN. Every game they play is on ESPN in the final week of the season. It's just, I also don't think he's going to be 5 away. You think he's going to score 5 goals over the next month?
I don't know.
Like, I just don't see that happening. Like, he'll probably have 5. He'll probably be 5 goals away halfway through March.
He's what, 12?
Yeah, 12 away from breaking it, and he's got 11 goals in his last 12 games or something like that. Like, it's. I just don't see. I guess I see your point. I just don't see that being the case.
Yeah, it's all situational. We got to see where they're at that point.
100%. I didn't realize that the Devils play the Bruins on April 15th as well. So that'll be a good.
In New Jersey or Boston?
In Boston. So maybe that'll be an even better excuse to get everyone together and watch Ovi break the record that day against the New York Islanders on Long Island. I hope he does it at home.
Gretzky's following him at 4.
I heard. Because you could get a hat trick in any game. You could have a 4-goal game. It's very rare to have a 5-goal game. When's the last 5-goal game?
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. I know they were going bananas over. Who had a 5-point game yesterday or the day before? Drawing a blank. Someone had a 5-point game a couple days ago, and they were going all bananas over it. But yeah, Alexander Ovechkin. Do you already say he's the greatest goal scorer of all time?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
because Gretzky. First of all, Gretzky wasn't a pure goal scorer. It wasn't his only knick-knack and it's not only Ovechkin's only skill either. It's got over 700 assists. It's not like that's not a walk in the park, but like if you erased every Wayne Gretzky goal, he'd still be the NHL's all-time leader. If you erased every Ovechkin goal, he would just be like a pretty good NHL forward in terms of points. So it's going to be interesting. I'm super stoked. I believe that when they won the Cup in 2018, it was one of the greatest moments in NHL history. It was the visual, the way people were freaking out. Ovi finally got it done. He's a fan favorite. Everybody loves this guy. And they finally got it done. And he raised that cup over his head and he celebrated harder than I've ever seen a captain celebrate winning the Stanley Cup. And then all summer, that bender that Washington went on is unlike any bender a champion has ever seen. I honestly think they out-celebrated the Cubs, who went 108 years without winning the World Series. I really believe it's the greatest championship celebration of all time. And if he breaks this record, it's going to be the all-time greatest hockey moment in the regular season ever. I really believe that.
Do you think anybody will beat Gretzky's goal scoring record in the playoffs?
How many?
He's got 122.
And what's second place?
109, but that's Mark Messier.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. You'd have to be like
Ovi's the closest active player, but he's at 72.
Yeah, no shot.
He's 50 behind, so they would have to.
Not going to happen. Only because Gretzky played in the playoffs in the non-salary cap era. They can have
all the time. Yeah.
They can have Curry and Messier and Gretzky and whatever the case may be. Paul Coffey. Like they could have all those guys on the team without worrying about losing them because they have to stay under the salary cap. Since winning the Stanley Cup, Tampa Bay's kept all their big guys. Stamkos, well, until this year, Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, Hedman, they all were there. Vasilevsky. But don't underestimate what losing Barclay Goodrow did to their third line. Don't underestimate what losing Blake Coleman did to their third line. Yanni Gourde was a pivotal piece to them winning the Stanley Cup. Andre Palat, pivotal piece to them winning the Stanley Cup. You start to lose a lot of those depth guys. It's hard to get in the playoffs as often as deep as it was pre-salary cap. So, no, I don't think that will be broken. I do not.
Or his points record.
Ovechkin has 70-something goals in the playoffs. We should be considering him the greatest playoff scorer anyway, even though he's 50 behind Gretzky, because hasn't he only been past the conference finals? Hasn't he only been past the second round once, the year they won the cup? I don't think they've ever been past the second round other than that. So to have all those goals with only 1 year past the second round, that's crazy.
It's funny. Crosby's at a goal behind at 71.
But Crosby's been to the final 4 times, and he's been in they've lost in the conference final. They lost to the Bruins. I don't think he scored a single goal in that series. I don't think he had a point in that series. Neither did Malkin. But they've had multiple deep run. Like Pittsburgh makes more sense. Ovechkin, it's like, damn, he's really got that many in the playoffs, and they've only been past the second round once in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely insanity. Frank, we're going to start to get into the NHL trade deadline a little bit here, too. How many goals will Ovechkin score between now and the trade deadline next Friday?
2.
So we'll be down to single digits, according to Frank.
I also don't know how many games they play.
Probably like 3 or 4.
I'll say 2.
Yeah, I'm going 6. Let's send it on over to period number 2. Welcome to period 2, Frank. We're going to talk NHL trade rumors. The NHL trade deadline is 1 week from today. The plan as of right now for the folks who like to enjoy this program is to have a little bit of a show leading up to the trade deadline when we have to put our pencils down ahead of the Blackhawks taking on the Utah Hockey Club next Friday. So make sure you tune in, set on Barroom Network notifications. So when Frank and I go live to react to a bunch of trades that had already happened already in the day up to that point, along with there will be trades broken while we're live on air. So I'm super stoked for that. It's going to be so much fun. I love the trade deadline. It is one of I have 5 or 6 days a year in the sports world that I compare to Christmas. And the NHL trade deadline is one of them. So happy early Christmas to everybody. Super excited for the NHL trade deadline. Please get the Devils a bottom 6 center and a middle 6 winger. Frank, Seth Jones of the Chicago Blackhawks has requested a trade. Your thoughts?
Not surprised. I mean, the rumor mill's been picking up quite a bit when it comes to Seth Jones. Could this finally be the year the Blackhawks are able to get rid of Seth Jones after so many years of that horrible contract? If there's a year, this is most likely the year. He requested a trade. 4 teams that I've heard are interested in him are Dallas, Florida, Colorado, and possibly Columbus. A couple things to note. The trade deadline is next Friday, March 7th. And the other big thing that needs to be taken into consideration here is how much are the Blackhawks willing to retain in order to get rid of Seth Jones? The fact that Seth Jones makes $9.5 million per year for 5 more years, that's just a tough sell to teams unless you're willing to retain. Probably going to have to at least retain the full 50% of his contract, you would think. And listen, Seth Jones isn't a bad defenseman.
No.
He's just not worth $9.5 million,
No.
which is why teams are hesitant
He's worth
to
6.
take on his. Yeah, he's not. The teams are hesitant because he's not worth 9.5, which is why you'd have to retain half. Because I really don't. I mean, no, it's half or nothing in my opinion. All 4 teams though that are rumored to be interested in him, they are currently in a playoff spot at the moment. But you think which one is the right team for Seth Jones, right? I'll talk about Dallas and Florida first. Dallas and Florida, they aren't a Seth Jones away from winning a Stanley Cup. I honestly believe the teams they have right now, they could win the Stanley Cup right at this moment. Playoffs start tomorrow. They could win the cup right now. They don't need a Seth Jones. So you flip it to Colorado and Columbus. And really, are they a Seth Jones away from winning the Stanley Cup either? You're going to get Seth Jones to win the cup? Probably not. But I think the team that fits him the most, and call me crazy, would be a little reunion in Columbus. An up-and-coming playoff team where he spent nearly half of his 13-year career in the NHL with Columbus. They're young, and they're itching for some extra veteran presence. And if they're going to make the playoffs, a guy like Seth Jones may help them on a retaining salary.
I agree with a lot of your assessment. There could also be a third-team broker, like the Blackhawks were for Rantanen.
Yeah.
They pay him half of his contract to play for the Hurricanes. Now, if the Hurricanes trade him and retain half, a team will be getting Rantanen for like $2.5 million, which is crazy. He scored yesterday, and that's a topic for a different day. He could get moved a second time. That very realistically could happen. I don't necessarily would say I foresee it, but it could happen. As far as Seth Jones, I love the fit in Florida. They lost Montour to free agency in Seattle. They could use a right shot defenseman that eats the hell out of minutes. Is Seth Jones worth 9.5? When I think of a 9.5 D, I really think of a guy who runs a first power play unit. Like, even though Seth Jones is tied for second in power play goals amongst defensemen this season, I don't necessarily, that doesn't sway me into thinking he's like a top power play quarterback type guy. Like, goals, yeah, I actually would prefer a power play quarterback like Cale Makar, who obviously Cale Makar is like the highest echelon, but even like a Dougie Hamilton, who like dances around the zone and like creates, the penalty killers to move and not be in place the whole time. Seth Jones doesn't necessarily do that. Yeah, he has a bomb from the point and he scores here and there, but I really like a defenseman who like makes penalty killers think twice about any move that they make, and Jones just doesn't really do that. So the 9.5 cap hit is really a tough sell. Tom says he thinks it'll be a 30% retention. I could absolutely see that. It wouldn't shock me if it's 30% and there's a broker, another team, a bottom feeder, maybe a San Jose, maybe I don't think Anaheim at this point. Montreal, Anaheim might try and get in. Anaheim, low-key. Elliot mentioned them as a team that could go for Rantanen if he's on the market again, just to try to sign him long-term. That like a team to help out in that situation. And the Blackhawks have one spot left on their salary to retain. You can only retain up to 3 players, and on up to 3 players that don't play for you. Jake McCabe is paid by the Blackhawks to play for the Leafs, and Mikko Rantanen is paid by the Blackhawks to play for the Hurricanes. So Jones could be that third guy. Rantanen comes off the books this year, and so does McCabe. So on July 1st, it'll just be Seth Jones. 2 spots will open up fresh again to do it all over again next year. But I think there's a chance he goes. The fit in Dallas is a lot to do with Heiskanen being out for a while. When's Heiskanen going to come back? If he comes back in the playoffs, is he going to be as mobile as he once was? Seth Jones can eat 25 minutes a game. He's averaging 24 something right now. And in their most recent game, he played 25. Everyone played bad in the first period yesterday, but everyone played okay in the second and third, and they just being down 5-1 after one period is impossible to overcome if you're the Blackhawks. But
Made a little push.
yeah, exactly. And they were okay. Their second period was probably the best period they've played since returning from the Four Nations face-off. And then there was a little bit of a push in the third. But Seth Jones, let me be clear, trading him makes them worse. Trading him today makes them a worse team. Just because he makes 9.5 doesn't mean he's a bad player. You can say he doesn't live up to his contract. He did earn that contract. When he was with Columbus, he had like a Norris caliber season. We have since learned that a lot of that offense has come from being on a pair with Werenski, because Werenski might win the Norris Trophy this year. He might be a nominee for the MVP, really, at the rate he's going. But back to Columbus, I think that makes sense too. That I'm pretty sure they have like $17 million in cap space. So like they realistically can afford to give up nothing for him, take on the whole contract, and bring their guy back. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Chicago's retaining something.
I think so too.
Unless they get nothing in return, which I don't necessarily think is a good idea either, because I actually low-key think trading him's a terrible idea. I've thought this for basically the entire season, and I'll tell you why. The contract sucks. He's still Seth Jones. He still plays half the game. He still leads your defense in scoring. Taking that away without a legitimate replacement, they're going to be so bad. They're going to go from bad to worse if they trade him. I'm just telling you. It'll be nice to get the contract off the books. Everybody always talks. They just want the contract off the books. That's all they care about.
Can we get a good replacement with the free space?
Who?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not saying this year, but somebody in the offseason.
If they trade him, we're looking at the lottery. I mean, I think we're looking at the lottery again next year too. I know you're a little more optimistic about next year. I think there's a chance they're worse than they are this year. If they keep moving on, Donato leaves. Donato's got 19 goals. You're going to ship him out. Like, if it's going to be a long time before, especially if they trade Jones. And now, even though I think it's a bad idea hockey-wise, how do you not, after him requesting a trade, the comments to the media after what game? Who were they? Was it Utah? After playing Utah, and he goes off to the media and he tells them that, this team is the same that they were in game one. Where was that 2 years ago, Seth? Like, why don't you say that 2 years ago? Be this vocal leader when you're still a part of the long-term plan. Now that you're all of a sudden not part of a long-term plan and you're probably going to get moved, it doesn't feel like genuine. It doesn't feel like you actually care about the betterment of the team that you're now saying it after all this has come out about you possibly getting moved. It honestly feels like more of a sideshow to get yourself moved. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't care about the betterment of the team. You don't care that they're the same right now as they were in game one, because you want out, which I also think it's fair for him to want out. Because when he was traded over to the Blackhawks, he had 1 year left on his deal at $6.5 million, and then he signed the extension that kicked in the following year, the 9.5. But when he was there, Taves, Kane, DeBrincat, Kirby Doc, who else was there on defense? They had higher hopes for other guys. They traded all of them away. They traded everyone away that was there when Seth Jones came over. And I don't think they would have been a cup team had they kept all those guys. They probably would have been a fringe, maybe make the wild card here and there, then get blown out by Colorado or Dallas in the first round type situation if they would have kept all those pieces together. I get why Kyle wanted to rebuild. Because, sometimes rebuilding and getting Bedard and having a chance at a top 3 pick this year and getting Levchinov, even though they should have taken Buyam, possibly getting Gavin McKenna next year. All of those things I get. But that wasn't what Jones was promised. That wasn't what Jones signed up for. And so I get his frustrations. It's just now the speaking to the media thing just feels disingenuous.
Mm-hmm. It's rough. It's definitely rough. I mean, you can't keep doing what they're doing. You got to start making things happen with Bedard. And someone was only second year in the league. Got plenty of time, but I don't think you could also afford to continue to ship everybody out, because when the time comes to build, you're going to have nobody to build with. You're going to have a bunch. You need some veterans at some point. You got it. You can't keep repeating the same old habits year after year and expect success. So, I mean, it looks like they're going to move him and possibly Donato as well, but it's like, where does it end?
I would not trade Donato. I would try.
Personally,
I would
don't think they're
extend
going
him.
to.
I would extend.
The rumor's out there.
Oh, it's out. No, I was standing in the scrum when I think it was Ben asked him. I've been there when he's asked about being traded. And, he's a big, God guy, so, everything's in God's hands, which, all good for you, Ryan Donato. That's cool. I don't know if you're going to stay in Chicago. I would keep him in Chicago.
I like Donato.
He's a good player. He's not a great player. He shouldn't be on a top line. He shouldn't be Connor Bedard's wingman, but he is an NHL player that can play the game the right way. And that's what the Blackhawks need more of, is players who play the game the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan Donato does that. I'm all about trading guys on their end of their contract for high-end draft picks. If you really wanted to rebuild, you had to trade DeBrincat and get a first-round pick and move on, and they got Korchinski out of it, which if you're going to draft Matthew Schaefer first overall or second overall, you got to trade Korchinski as soon as possible. But, you traded Kirby Dach, who, breaking news as of 4 minutes ago, Kirby Dach is out for the season with right knee surgery. So that's coming over the wire live as we speak. And I brought him up, and 2 seconds later I saw that because my hockey news partner is taking a piece on Kirby Dach being out for the year. You moved some of those high-end guys for high-end picks and pieces. You're not getting that for Donato. The 4th-round pick that you get for Donato isn't going to help you in all likelihood. You're not What are the odds you get Jesper Bratt, right? 6th-round pick. That could, in theory, happen, and I think that's what teams hope for when they trade guys like Donato for picks like that. But, you already have one of the best farm systems in the NHL. Frank Nazar's a dog. He was the Blackhawks' best player last night against Vegas, and it wasn't close. At least their best forward. I would be very careful on trading Donato if I'm them. You need players in the lineup that play the game the right way, with some of the young guys also coming up. I'd give him a 3-year deal, $3 million. Give him a 3x3 if he wants it. He wants to play there. He is a good dude. He's very friendly. You got to keep this guy around. I'll be a little annoyed if they move him and don't get. If they got a second, Frank, all in. Bye. I'll drive Donato to the airport for them. But if it's anything less, no, can't do it.
I don't think they'd get a second for him.
No, but that's what they probably want, because he's got 19 goals. He probably will flirt with 30.
That's what I mean. You can't go back to that goes back to what I said. Eventually you just can't. You got to stop shipping everybody out for picks.
Yeah. Does he have? Am I tweaking on him having 19? By the way,
no, he does.
It's 19 on the dot.
I'm pretty sure it's 19 on the dot. Yeah.
Because I was like, did he get his 20th? When I typed in Donato, or Domino's Pizza come up. But
I could look.
But when he scores, they tweet it's not delivery, it's Donato.
No, it's 19.
And he's got 19. And then 21 assists is nothing to scoff at either. He's got 40 points. How many players in the NHL have 40 points? Less than 100. I bet.
Yeah.
Donato's an awesome player. He's an awesome player. And I really hope they find a way to get this taken care of, because he is just, so good. So good. Frank, who else? Oh, Tom has a comment. Personally, I hope they don't draft Schaefer. I'm a big Martone fan, but Misa would be fantastic, or Hagens. I don't know. This draft is subjective. The things I've heard about Schaefer, and whenever someone says Cale Makar, I roll my eyes. Because I didn't even think Cale Makar was going to be Cale Makar until he became Cale Makar. Okay? I don't want to hear that someone's Connor McDavid. I don't want to hear that someone's Cale Makar. I barely want to hear if they have a shot like Austin Matthews. Because until I see it on NHL ice, you can't make those claims. You can say that is their style of play. They're saying his style of play is Cale Makar. Just that shifty, fast defenseman. And I think he's the best player in the draft, but the Blackhawks have a surplus of defensemen. Kevin Korchinski's obviously like a mostly offensive guy, and I think Schaefer leans offense too, which is why I say if you draft Schaefer, you trade Korchinski. Lev Shanov is like a two-way guy. Sam Rinzel, I heard, was it Darren Drager or one of them? One of them said he's Brock Faber. He's coming to the Blackhawks and becoming Brock Faber right away, which would mean if Lev Shanov is what he is and Rinzel is what he is, you have two really high-end pillars on defense, but neither of them go crazy offensively, and Schaefer might do that. I'm not as bullish on Korchinski as I once was. He was awesome in the AHL All-Star game. He was the All-Star game MVP. It's great. He's got a supreme level of skill. The Blackhawks developing him is my concern. Martone is like, if you're looking for like can't call him that, but like that style, like that pesty skill player, like a Kachuk. Misa just doesn't stop scoring goals, and then Hagens, you know about Hagens. It's not like next year where like Gavin McKenna, you can just go to the podium to whoever wins the lottery the second they win it. This year, the top four can go in any order. They could go in any order. If I were the Blackhawks, I would take Hagens and trade Korchinski. But if they're dead set on not taking a defenseman, I would take Misa.
And VP, you're going to disagree. But again, I hear rumblings about potentially trading the number one pick if they wanted it.
No, I don't disagree, because any of those four, if like let's say the team at 4 wants to move up to 1, I wouldn't hate it.
I think it's a very real possibility.
I wouldn't want to win the lottery. I'll say that. Because if they win the lottery, they can't win it next year. And they're going to be bad next year. I'm sorry to say. They're going to be so bad next year. Who's coming to make it better?
I don't know. I think they are going to get at least one big free agent this offseason or trade.
And if they sign Marner, does that take them out of being a top 5 team, a bottom 5 team?
I don't know. If Marner comes, does it attract anybody else wanting to come too?
It's possible. And I see the pieces, and you
need quite a few pieces. I get that.
But some people are out on them long term. I'm far from that. I'm actually in on them long term. I'm out on them for the rest of this year and next year. The rest of this season is going to be so painful. The problem is the Sharks keep losing too. Or that could be a good thing, because this isn't the year you want to win the lottery. You want Gavin McKenna. That kid is he's unbelievable. I think he's better than all these guys we're talking about combined. I like Misa's goal scoring. I also am very bullish on Nick Lardis. He doesn't stop scoring goals for the Brantford Bulldogs. I think he's got 63 goals in like 50 games.
Yeah, he's been really good.
Two Blackhawks players have risen their stock more this year than I thought they would. And it's Nick Lardis. And then I'm drawing a blank on the other one I was going to say. Well, Nazar, he's in the NHL. He's been amazing. Rinzel. Sam Rinzel. I knew he'd be a good player. He might be like a stud. But Rinzel and Lardis, all in on those guys. They're going to be so good, I think. But this draft is interesting. And that all came from talking about the trade deadline. Frank, who do you think buys and who do you think sells?
I think a couple buyers would be the Leafs. I think the Leafs are going to be buyers. Interesting enough with the Leafs, Marner and Tavares, they're both on expiring contracts. So I think this postseason is going to be huge for the Maple Leafs. I'm not saying I think they're going to have a huge postseason. I'm saying I think they need to have a huge postseason, because if they don't, this offseason could get a little weird for them, and they need depth pieces. Mainly, they're probably looking for a number 2 center that'll challenge Tavares, and I think they could go out and get that this trade deadline. So I could see them being buyers, and I think the Capitals are also going to be buyers. This team doesn't have too many more opportunities to win one final Stanley Cup with Ovechkin, and they are the best team in the Eastern Conference by 9 points. This team's all in, and the thing that benefits them the most, I think, heading into the trade deadline this year, is that they've had a ton of injuries, and because of that, they have $16.68 million in LTIR cap space available that they could splurge at the trade deadline. So they don't necessarily need to make a move because of how well the team has clicked this year, but why not make a move with all that LTIR? It's kind of like the Vegas Golden Knights and what they did with Mark Stone. Like, you have all that cap space available. Go out there and make your team even better, and I think they will. They'd be dumb not to. So that's who I think will be buyers. Sellers, I would say, well, obviously the Hawks. Not gonna. We just talked about the Hawks. They're probably gonna be sellers with Seth Jones and possibly Donato. But the other big one, I think, could be the Pittsburgh Penguins. And as much as the Penguins fans don't want to admit it, we're seeing a decline over the past couple of seasons that we saw from the Chicago Blackhawks. They're getting progressively worse, but they're still holding on to their big stars, something that the Blackhawks went through. If I'm the Penguins, it's time to start the rebuild. You got it. You got 57 points. You're the second worst team in the Eastern Conference. You missed the postseason last year, and now you're worse this year. Things are going south. As long as Crosby is on the team, it's going to be hard to move guys like Raquel or Rust because those are his line mates. But you got to figure it out, and the rebuild's got to start happening. I see them being sellers.
I agree with your 3 sellers. Those were the 3 I have.
I like 2 sellers.
Or 2, yeah. Well, Blackhawks and Penguins, is that? Yeah. Well, I think the Sharks sell if they have any expiring deals too. That was the 3rd. I don't know why I thought you mentioned them. You clearly didn't. And then Pittsburgh, Rickard Raquel. I'd love to see. So one of my teams is the Devils. They better buy. They better add a forward. If they don't add a forward, I'm going to be pissed, like legitimately angry. They need a spark in the bottom 6, like they need air to breathe. It can't be all Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, and Jesper Bratt creating offense. I need more out of Timo Meier, but he's already there. I need another forward. Rickard Raquel would be great. He'd fit in well. They need a center. I do think the Leafs buy. And I think Florida goes for a defenseman. If it's not Seth Jones, they would love to add another good to great right shot defenseman that can help them try to repeat in the playoffs. Frank, I don't think Washington buys.
That'd be crazy.
And
wasting cap space.
But the only reason I think that is, again, I go back to my guy, Elliot Friedman. You look at Washington's lineup and, like, who are you taking out? Like, everyone there just seems to they made all their trade deadline acquisitions over the summer already, is kind of what it, like, feels like. And they just have such good chemistry, and it's such a feel-good, like, story that, like, somebody coming in and messing that all up. I mean, like, if they added, like, a depth defenseman and, like, maybe a depth forward, like, fine. I think of the 2015 Blackhawks. They added Kimmo Timonen basically to come in and be, like, the grandpa in the room. And then Antoine Vermette. And Antoine Vermette had some big games, especially in the conference finals against the Ducks. And I think he had an OT winner or a big goal in the Stanley Cup final. But, just a depth piece forward, probably not, disengaging the chemistry too much. Subtle moves like that for Washington, sure. But going out there and being the team that gets Rantanen or, like, making a big trade for someone like Rickard Raquel, I don't see it. And I kind of think that would, like, throw everything off. It reminds me of Miracle when Herb pretends to be bringing on another player to join Team USA, and they all approach him and like, "Come on, Herb, we're a family. Washington's a family." And I'm bullish on Washington, man. I think they can freaking run it. I hope they do too. Pierre-Luc Dubois is playing well. Mangiapane, nice little depth piece that they added. Chychrun. People forget Chychrun had 18 goals from the blue line with Arizona 2 years ago. When he's healthy, he scores goals from the back end. And, John Carlson's playing so well. And Dylan Strome, what a bunch of morons the Blackhawks are for not even giving him a qualifying offer. Just said, Dylan, no thank you. It's just craziness to me that was the case, but I digress on that. And did I say the Leafs?
Yeah.
Because you also said the Leafs, and I didn't want to steal all your thunder, but
yeah.
I think the Leafs could win the Cup. I think Edmonton makes a move too. I could see Edmonton trading for a goalie because everything we say about Stu Skinner is when he's great, and when he stinks, he stinks. And this year, he has mostly stunk. Last year, he was mostly good. I think they could win the Cup with him, but not this year.
He's too inconsistent, and I've said that for the longest time. He's just inconsistent.
Yep, absolutely. And Colorado, they'll try. Colorado will try. Like the Colorado.
If anybody's looking for a goalie, he might not be your number one, but an interesting guy that I've mentioned that was one of my headliners to possibly make headlines this year going into the season was Dustin Wolf has taken over the number one role in Calgary. He's been great. I was very high.
Trophy.
I was very high on Dustin Wolf. Dan Vladar is going to be on the market. He could be a backup. He's 100%. He's a good backup for teams.
100%.
I'd take him.
Absolutely.
I was running a team.
The Calder Trophy is a 4-horse race right now. We thought it was a 1-horse race, then we thought it was a 2-horse race. It's a 4-horse race. It could go to any of Macklin Celebrini, Matvey Michkov, Lane Hudson. I keep wanting to say Cole Hudson, his brother, who had a sick goal for BU last week. And then Dustin Wolf. It could be any of those 4. Frank, all right, we're going to move on to period number 3. Last night, the Columbus Blue Jackets absolutely smoked the Detroit Red Wings with their moms in the building in Detroit, and that includes Johnny Gaudreau's mom. Really cool to see them invite her along and have a good time as the boys beat the Red Wings. Now, we are coming into this weekend with the Stadium Series being on Saturday at late afternoon, early evening. I think it's going to be a very good one at Ohio Stadium, also known as the Shoe, home of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Frank, they're expecting over 90,000 people to show up to this game, which would make it the second largest attended NHL game in history. If this were to be the case, it would be very fitting if Michigan and Ohio State have the 2 largest NHL games played in their buildings because they're the 2 largest college football fields in the country. Great moment for the Blue Jackets. Great moment for this rivalry. Not a lot of people know the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry actually derives from U.S. history. The battle over who owns Toledo. Obviously, Ohio won that war. It almost became Civil War too. What are your thoughts on the Stadium Series game? You looking forward to it?
I am looking forward to it, and I'm not overly surprised at how many people are expected to be there because the Shoe, for one, is one of the biggest stadiums in sports in the United States. It holds over 100,000, so expected over 90,000 doesn't really shock me. The weather's projected to be very nice given this time of the year. In not only in hockey, obviously, but off the ice, huge rivalry. College football, huge rivalry. Michigan, Ohio State, 2 of the biggest names in college. I mean, think about it. Most of these fans, too, are not going to just be hockey fans. We're going to have college football fans who are just diehard Ohio State fans wanting to go to the Shoe and root on the Blue Jackets. And you're going to have diehard Michigan fans coming to root out the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, that's why there are so many people going there. There is going to be they're just going to be filled with a bunch of just nutheads just rooting on their teams. That's what I think is going to make it a lot of fun too. It's going to be buzzing.
Absolutely. And Michigan and Ohio State are the last 2 teams to win the national championship. So that'll add a little extra juice to the building. They have opposite colors, which is hilarious. The Columbus team in hockey wears blue and the hockey team wears red, which is very funny. 2 sick jerseys. I think the NHL went 4 for 4 on outdoor jerseys this year. Like I would rank them Blackhawks, Red Wings, Blue Jackets, Blues, but that's not a slight on the Blues because I think the Blues one is still cool. Somebody's got to be in fourth. I just this is going to be such a cool game aesthetically.
Yeah.
The big O that is Ohio State's logo surrounds the rink. I found that to be a really nice touch. There are the little Buckeye things that they have on their helmet all over the field. Really, really cool. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see this game.
And there's so much to play for in this game.
Oh, is there
The
ever?
Blue Jackets and Red Wings are tied with the final two wild cards at 66 points apiece.
Yep.
Super high implications in this one.
Thought it could be a bottom feeder matchup when it was first announced.
So,
Seeing Patrick Kane playing an outdoor game, that'll be really cool.
Yep.
Alex DeBrincat. And then James Van Riemsdyk will extend his already set most outdoor games ever played record. He has currently played in 7 outdoor games. He will play in his 8th when the Blue Jackets host the Red Wings on Saturday. I actually, when I was at the Winter Classic, I walked around asking people who plays the most outdoor games in NHL history. And like your immediate thought is to go to like the Blackhawks, right? Because they have played in so many. Like, is it Taves? Is it Kane? Somehow, by the grace of God, James Van Hockey has played in more outdoor games than the Blackhawks core guys. And some of the Blackhawks core guys weren't there for this Winter Classic, so that's taking one away from them. But JVR was on the Flyers. They played in a couple while he was there. Then he goes to Toronto. They played the Centennial Classic, a Winter Classic, a Stadium Series. And then he goes back to Philly. They play in Lake Tahoe during COVID. You might remember that when they played the Bruins and Pasta played the Barbie Girl song. And then now here we are. He's with the Blue Jackets, and they get an outdoor game. So if you want your team to play in an outdoor game, sign James Van Riemsdyk is basically the point. Maybe he'll play with one of Tampa, Florida, Boston, or the Rangers next year. Oh, he played in the Winter Classic with the Bruins 2 years ago. So it's funny. He's played in all these Winter Classics and not a single one of them with the Blackhawks.
Yeah, it is kind of funny.
Frank, you think the Blue Jackets probably win this game?
No, I'm going Red Wings.
Oh, you're going Red Wings?
Because Blue Jackets won yesterday.
Okay.
I'm going Red Wings.
I hope the Red Wings win for the Devils' playoff sake. But because Columbus, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. I swear. It's crazy how well they've been playing since Christmas. I think they have the 5th best record in the NHL since December 18th.
They've been good.
So yeah, really good. Really, I'm happy for them. It's not like a disdain by any. I want the Devils to make the playoffs. They're my favorite team. But Columbus, they're on their trail. Should be a good matchup. I'm excited for it. All right.
I'm excited too.
It's time for America's favorite podcast segment of the week. Breaking Bets.
Where's my money, bitch?
Frank, the time for talk is over. The floor is yours.
Okay, Alan. I'm going to keep it short and sweet this week, mainly because it's Stadium Series weekend, and we're going to go with, first off, before we get to the main pick, take the Red Wings to score first. There was no line on it. I think it was just too early. There's too many factors that take place going into an outdoor game. The weather could kind of dictate what the line would be, but I think the Red Wings are going to come out hot after their disappointing loss to Columbus the other night. They kind of got shelled, lost 5-2. Columbus kind of owned them there. Take them to score first in this game, whatever the line may be or whatever it comes to be, for 2 units. But the main pick, obviously, and I kind of just said it a couple minutes ago, taking the Detroit Red Wings money line, bet to win 5 units, -115. It's revenge time for the Red Wings. This game is too big for the Red Wings. They're trying to hold on to a playoff spot, tied with the Blue Jackets, and they really can't afford to drop their second game in a row to them. If they want to make this push for the playoffs, massive rivalry here in terms of Michigan versus Ohio State. even though the game's being played at the Shoe in Ohio, the fan base is probably going to be evenly split right down the middle. I mean, there's just going to be so many fans coming here for this rivalry game. So I don't think the crowd's going to lean heavily towards one side, even though, because it's in Ohio, you think more people be rooting for Columbus. I don't know if I buy into that, though. So take the Red Wings to get the job done. I hope it's a treat. Red Wings money line -115, and the Red Wings to score first in the game. Those are my 2 picks for you this week.
I actually have a nugget for you.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the attendance, just give me 1 second to find it. Right when you said it, I started scrambling to try and find it. Hold on. I will get this for you.
I feel like it's going to be split. Right.
Yeah.
Down the middle.
Yeah, I think you're wrong. If I remember this, what they said correctly. Hold on. There was something. NHL VP Steve Mayer says Saturday's Stadium Series game between the Columbus Blue Jackets and Detroit Red Wings in Ohio Stadium is trending toward a sellout with 90,000 plus tickets already sold. Also said a majority of the tickets are sold to Blue Jackets fans with a quote, "This will be a very Blue Jackets heavy crowd."
Well, I'm not surprised. It's in Columbus, but
yeah, there'll be red. There'll be red. But I hope it's a pro Blue Jackets crowd overall. Like, give me at least 60-40.
I call bullshit.
I want Columbus, man. I want them to succeed, even though it's so torn, like the team directly. And like maybe the Hurricanes could just keep losing and the Devils and Blue Jackets can get division spots. But there's also the wild card too. I hope Columbus makes the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, they've gone through a lot this hockey season and preseason.
Going back to like even before the obvious, Babcock, the idiot that replaced him, that didn't know how to put together a line play, puts Fantilli on like a wing on the fourth line. Like, what are you doing, dude? And, the losing guys in free agency. Panarin has the all-time greatest season by a forward, leaves. Like, it's just, they trade Seth Jones. Like, just everything bad seems to happen to Columbus.
Rick Nash.
Johnny Gaudreau is also not the only player on their roster to perish in the middle of his prime, unfortunately. Remember Yoel Kiviranta?
Yep.
Or not Kiviranta.
Kivi
Lennox. Kivi Lennox. The firework incident on 4th of July, like that, it's just the tragedy that has surrounded this team is terrible, and I wish them good juju. I really do. I hope Blue Jackets fans show up. Let's make hockey almost as popular as football in Ohio. I love my Ohio football all around. The teams from Ohio, the players from Ohio. If you draw a circle around like Ohio, the West Pennsylvania, and Virginia, like it's all like within the circle. I think Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, a bunch of the other Andy Reid, like some of the top 5 or 6 football coaches ever were all born in that circle, and I love that. But I want hockey to be just as popular as football in these regions, and I won't sleep until it is. So watch the Blue Jackets play the Red Wings on Saturday, and then stay tuned for my coverage as the Chicago Blackhawks also take on the Winnipeg Jets. No, not the Winnipeg Jets. I have that way wrong. I'm looking at April 12th instead of March 1st, which I should be looking at. It's also a Saturday, which is why I got confused. The Blackhawks have a late night game against the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Keep with the hockey news to stay up on that. And then if you want to read my Devils BS on Twitter, they play the Utah Hockey Club too. Damn, I'm going to watch 2 full Utah Hockey Club games this week.
It's a very Utah Hockey Club friendly show. Huh?
Watch them play the Devils on Saturday night, and I'm going to watch them play the Blackhawks next Friday night. So 2 full – I watch pieces here and there of every team, but 2 full Utah games for VP in the next week. Not mad about it.
2 full Utah losses?
Hopefully. Let's get it. The Devils are the first ever team to beat Utah.
Yep.
They were 3-0-0 when the New Jersey Devils hosted them for the first time ever, and the Devils won that game 4-0. I watched it while I was in Wisconsin. Very, very cool, Frank. Very good show. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure you tune in next week because next week we're going to have a trade deadline extravaganza. So much to look forward to with that. And then, of course, at night, the Chicago Blackhawks against the Utah Hockey Club. We'll be there for that as well. Games throughout the week. Frank's coming the following Tuesday. It's just going to be a great, great, great stretch of hockey as we look forward to getting ourselves wrapped up in the regular season, moving into the playoffs before it's summertime.
Yep.
Got anything else you want to get off your chest before
Trade deadline next week, the show, and we'll all be doing it shirtless. So, yeah.
Yes. If the Hurricanes trade Rantanen again, Frankie's going to show nips online. And if the Blackhawks trade Jones to one of Dallas, Florida, Columbus, or Colorado, I will show nips live on air. So it's going to be very, very exciting.
Very
looking forward to it.
Podcast.
And then if a guy with over 70 points that's not Rantanen gets traded, Tom's going to come on and show nips online. So make sure you tune in. It's going to be very exciting. Very much looking forward to it. Make sure you set on notifications. Follow at the King Bean on Twitter. Follow at Vinny Parisi on Twitter. And as always, Frank, can't believe we fucking lost to Canada again.
It's a sad day, bad day.
Sad day, bad day. Thank you for listening.